Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 350. I am so excited for today's interview. We have with us an inspiring man, Tony Bussey. You went viral on, I saw you on Facebook. You went viral and your story has inspired me. I said, I have to get him on my show. I can't wait for my listeners to learn from Tony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank you for the show, and I want to dive right into your story because when I saw that you went through the Fort McMurray wildfires, where I'm originally from Canada. I live in the States now, but I have a lot of friends in Alberta, and I had a lot of friends that were displaced and lost their homes, and it was quite tragic. But
I'm jealous of the United States right now because it looks like you guys are going to get the Stanley Cup again. And to a Canadian, that's pretty well heartbreaking. But that's
I know
that's another podcast. That's I'm very sad right now, but that's okay.
I've had to explain to my husband why and how hockey is the best sport.
Oh yeah, by far.
So Tony, you had quite an experience going through the Fort McMurray wildfires, but that is not that's not the topic for today's show. The topic is that you transformed your health and your life because of them. I'd love for you to take us back and tell us your story. What happened to you that transformed your life?
Well, I mean, for years and years, I lived a life that was just horrible, I guess you could say. I like to basically tell people that I was in a self-made prison. I mean, I was in a body that I'm not that tall. I'm only between 5'8" and 5'9", but I was hovering around 600 pounds. My top weight was 567 pounds, and I was that size for years. Life is horrible at that size. There's nothing designed for people to live day-to-day life. I mean, to get into a restaurant, to get into a vehicle, to get on a bus, to buy clothes, everything's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So leading up to the fire, it was I was evacuated twice from that fire. And during the second evacuation, because they had flown us back north of Fort McMurray, we weren't allowed to go back into the city. But I work in a mine north of the city, and the city itself was still a dangerous area, but north of the city at the time was okay. They had the mine shut down, but they were trying to get everything back up and running. The fire seemed to be dying down quite a bit. But when we got up there, it almost like overnight, it just really got bad again. I mean, there was a couple camps up there that was on fire, one completely burnt to the ground. And it was during this evacuation, a second evacuation, that basically my life changed, because at the time we left the camp and there was a lineup to get on this bus. It's a huge coach style bus that they had coming around picking people up, like those Greyhound buses. And I was in the lineup and I was in the back of the line, and a gentleman came along, a manager. He came along and he took me from the back of the line to the very front of the line. And anybody listening to this that is extremely overweight, they'll understand how anybody that's really obese, you don't like any extra attention. You're already stared at enough. You're already, you don't blend in, and that's all you long for, is just to blend in with people. So when he picked me out of the back and put me to the front, right away, all of these eyes were on me. It's like, why is that guy going to the front? But looking back on it now, I understood why they did it, because you don't want a man that's almost 600 pounds in well over 30 degree Celsius heat. I'm not sure what it is in Fahrenheit.
It's in the 90s.
Yeah, so you don't want anybody over in 90 degree heat, that size, up there in the middle of nowhere, passing out basically. Mm-hmm. So they put me on the bus, and the bus was packed, but except there was an empty seat next to me. But I was spilling over in that seat too much that they couldn't sit nobody there. And you look out the window of that bus and you see a long line of people, men, women. There's somebody's wife, there's somebody's daughter, somebody's husband, somebody's son, waiting to get out of that hell, basically. And now somebody has to wait even longer because I'm taking up two seats. So they brought us up to an airport, and it was the same situation. I had to get on a plane. They had all these planes landing at an airport. They would land, they would fill up and take off, and more planes would land. That's all it was. And when I got on the plane, it was exact same thing. The plane was packed, it was full, except there was a seat next to me that I was taking up too much of that seat for them to put anybody there. And with that was kind of the final straw for me. Everything over the years, every struggle, every sadness, every bit of depression, every bit of hate that I had for myself because I was so huge, it all culminated into that. And then I couldn't get those images of that people out of my head, and I kept thinking, okay, now you're really affecting other people. I knew I always was, like my family and stuff, but for some reason that wasn't enough. But then through that fire, I mean, we didn't know how bad it was going to get. I didn't know how long these people were going to have to wait. But because of me, now somebody was going to have to wait there even hours, who knows at the time, maybe another day longer. But everybody got out, thank God. But that had such an effect on me. And then when I got home, or got down to Edmonton, Alberta that evening, that's where they flew us to, I had enough. And from that moment on, I changed everything. I changed my eating habits. I think I started walking even, I believe it was that night or the next day, but I changed everything and I haven't looked back since.
Now we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary
Yes.
of the Fort McMurray fire. It happened in May. So tell me, how long did it take for you to start to lose the weight after you, like you said, you changed your eating habits, you started to walk? Tell us about that journey.
It was actually fairly quick. Now I was 567 pounds. I couldn't get on any normal scale to see how big I was. I had to use a warehouse scale for the company that I work with, one that they would put forklifts on. That's the only thing that I could weigh myself. And when I weighed, I was 567. So when they allowed us back into Fort McMurray and went back to work and everything was kind of back to normal, in June the 10th, I believe that was. So I started this about the third week of May. So say by the middle of June, I was down 30 pounds. And for the first time in my life, the scale had went down and not up. And I'll never forget it, when I seen it that day, oh, I was, it was like I won the lottery. It was just what a feeling. I mean, what an overwhelming feeling of joy that finally, it's like, I keep referencing saying a prison. Well, it's like when you got 30 pounds gone, it's like somebody has taken a set of keys to that prison door and they're putting it a little bit closer to you, that you're getting closer to getting yourself free. And that's the way I felt. Like I was actually starting to become free again. There's two types of freedom in this world that people long for, and that's physical freedom and financial freedom. And if you can tame one of those, you have a life that's more beautiful than ever. And I had 30 pounds gone, and then I had 100 pounds gone by September. And that's when my life really started to change. And it's been a beautiful ride ever since.
Looking at you now, no one would know that you were once almost 600 pounds, that you were,
No.
You look super healthy, super fit, and you've done this within less than 3 years.
Yeah, yes, I've lost it. I think it took me about 2 years. I've been maintaining the weight now for about a year. The thing that I did in the beginning, I do to this day. I eat the same. I go out for my walk. I walk 3.5 to 5 kilometers a day. Now walking, to me, it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. Like you get up, or like I'll get up 4:30 in the morning and I'll go for a walk before I go to work. And I work a 12-hour shift. But it's just that walk in the morning, that crisp air, that alone time, the time to think, and just to reflect and remember that 3 years ago I couldn't do that. So I smile and I start my day, and it's like a fresh cup of coffee. I miss it if I can't get out.
So your walks are like a meditation in motion, where you're bringing in gratitude and reflection into your life.
Oh yeah, Oh, definitely. Anything that you might be dealing with, it just has a way of clearing your head. And because that weight, that size, like for years and years, it was my biggest disadvantage. Because as soon as you would wake up in the morning, you knew how big you were. Because as soon as you took your first breath, it was a struggle. But
Hmm.
that is so ingrained in my memory that now that has become my biggest asset. Because for years and years and years, I longed to be out of that prison, like I keep saying. And now that I'm finally out, it's like a dream come true.
So while you were overweight, you longed to not be overweight, but what stopped you from taking the actions to accomplish that?
It was mental. It was, I had myself convinced that I didn't deserve anything else. I had myself convinced that that was my life. I had myself convinced that I was trapped. I would go to bed at night, and there was nights I would go to bed and just pray that I wouldn't wake up
Hmm.
because it was so horrible. I mean, um, so I want people, if anybody's listening to this right now that is struggling with their seeing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be weight, it could be drugs, could be alcohol, could be anything. But you get to a point of despair where you just don't care about yourself anymore. You get to a point where you don't care if you live or die. And basically, what I was doing was eating myself into an early grave. And I just, for whatever reason, and I still look back and I still struggle with the reason why I you know, didn't start it then. I used to try at times, but it was never successful. But for some reason, seeing those people waiting for that bus and waiting for that plane, and that old something clicked in my brain. It was something that clicked that said, "Okay, this is enough. This is enough, Tony. Now you're affecting other people. Life is passing you by. Let's get this changed because you're not going to have another chance." I mean, I really didn't think I'd be alive right now to even talk to you if I stayed that size.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's I wake up in the morning and I'm not reminded of that life. I wake up in the morning and I'm reminded of a new life, and I smile. I smile every time I put socks on. I I I have actually had people sending me socks in the mail, and it's been wonderful because that is my biggest treasure right now is a dresser drawer full of socks that I can wear.
When you were at your heaviest, could you not put on your own socks?
No, I went about 3 years where I couldn't put on socks. So to walk without socks on, I work in heavy industry, so I'm wearing work boots without socks on. I would take my work boots and put up on a table, and I would tie them loosely so I could slide my foot down in them because I couldn't bend over to tie up my boots. So I would slide my foot down in them, and then you got a boot on with no socks on, so your foot is sliding around in this all day. Just physical pain. So when I could do that, I think I had about 100 pounds gone. I mean, that first day when I put socks on again, it was, yeah. it, it'd be like having, and I'm Canadian. I have cold winters. It'd be like during a blast, in the middle of January, and you get a blast of warm summer air coming against your face for 5 seconds. It's just a feeling of happiness. It's like, you know, it'd be like if we actually won a Stanley Cup again. That's the only way I can describe it. Is just a feeling of just pure joy, pure joy.
Tell us about some other times during your 2 year journey towards your goal weight where you had those first moments, like the first time you could fit into a booth at a restaurant or go to a
Oh,
movie theater for the first time. Do you have any more of those?
oh, yeah. Like the first time I got in my car without having, I had a seatbelt extension in my car and I couldn't even wear a seatbelt then. So I still keep that seatbelt extension in my car just for a reminder. But for the first time I could put a seatbelt on normally, you talk about a movie theater. Well, I used to take my daughter, we go to the movies. She would have to sit 2 seats over from me. Now she sits right next to me. To go to a normal clothing store, nothing is more frustrating or depressing or demoralizing when you go into a big and tall, like a George Richards clothing store for big men, and they don't have clothes to fit you. I mean, I used to pray and wish there was a store called Short and Obese, but there wasn't. it didn't exist. I mean, I was soon going to have to go out and buy a tarp. I mean, I was starting to feel like horrible. So when I could go just to a normal clothing store, and buy clothes, when you go into a normal, like a grocery store, and because for big people, like really big, like I was, when you go anywhere where there are crowds, you always get stared at. And when you would go now to places where there's crowds, people don't give you a second look. You're just one of thousands. Everybody wants to be extraordinary. Everybody wants to stand out. An obese person wants to blend in. And to finally achieve that, to go to a restaurant and to not have to worry about if they have tables or booths. I can go and I can fit into a booth now. I went on, to get more personal, I went on my first date in years. At that size, you would never go out and ask a woman out because you never had nice clothes. You didn't feel good about yourself, everything that went with that, right? And to finally be social again, to meet new people. Oh, like I said, to buy socks, to actually wear socks again, to get up in the morning and take 2 seconds to put socks on. I bought my first pair of sandals. I never wore sandals before. Right now I'm sitting here wearing shorts. It's the first time, this will be the first summer I've wore shorts in about 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I went on my
That's so
first
cool.
first international trip. I went down to Mexico last November. I've never been to the United States before. Well, years and years ago, before we needed a passport, I drove through northern Michigan, but I've never traveled through the United States, and I definitely want to see that beautiful country. I want to come down there, see New York, Washington, San Francisco, all across. I just want to travel. So when you get on a plane and you can go and you can fit into a normal seat, you don't need a seatbelt extension. You can put the tray table down. And then you see people coming on the aisle and they'll sit next to you and they don't give you like that nasty look, like, oh, look at that big guy. They just sit next to you as a normal person. And they don't know your story, and you feel with so much joy because you're just normal. Just to do everyday normal activities.
So many people take it for granted, but for those who are, living in larger bodies, what's other people take for granted, they
Yep.
only wish they could have.
Oh yeah, like to call a cab. Before, if I needed to have a cab, cabs didn't fit me. I couldn't get into just any car. Now I can call up any cab and get into it and go anywhere.
Hmm.
If you get to an airport, one of the things was having trouble fitting on a plane, but you could always buy 2 seats if you have to. Now I hardly flew at the time. But the biggest thing was getting to an airport and say if you had to rent a vehicle, what if they never had vehicles big enough for you to rent?
Right.
Things like that. So it's all of these. Yeah, I used to worry about getting sick. How would an hospital take care of me? Could I fit in their bathroom? Could I get on a stretcher? Things like that.
Right.
It's all of these things that would give you anxiety. I live alone, so I mean, if I used to wonder, okay, I'd be here. What if I had a heart attack? Who's gonna know?
Mm.
I had a friend of mine that used to call me because we worked shift work, so I wouldn't see him for a while. But if he didn't hear from me in 2-3 days, he would call me or text me to make sure I was okay.
How many years did you spend living in a larger body?
I was always, not always, but I was always like kind of larger. I remember I moved to Fort McMurray in 1999, and I was hovering around 320, 330 pounds, I believe, at the time. It was, I believe, in 2004, like I'm originally from Newfoundland on the east coast of Canada, and I drove home then. And when I came back, none of my clothes fit. And from then on, so I go like from 2004 up to about 2016 is when I put on all that weight. And I would say for the last, from say 2006, 2016, I was really, really getting really big. It seems like once you hit a certain level, whether it's 350 or 400 pounds, I didn't like weighing myself much then, but the weight would just snowball.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you hit a certain amount, then you go up and you go up even faster, because what happens is you care less and you do less and less activity because it becomes more of a strain on your body to do so. And then you get depressed more, so you turn more and more to junk food to feel a little bit of happiness. And then it becomes a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm. There's a TV show with a doctor named Dr. Nowzaradan, and it's
Oh yes, yes,
right?
I've watched. Oh yes,
It's My 600-Pound Life, and he says that
yes,
at this weight, so like you said, around 400 pounds, at this weight, you're either gaining or losing. It's very difficult to maintain. In his
yes,
experience, he just sees that you've got to maintain momentum in your weight loss, or else you'll start gaining again.
yeah.
How did you maintain your momentum? Like, did you ever have an experience where you got on the scale and you didn't lose weight, or maybe you gained a few pounds, or the weight loss wasn't as significant as you thought it would be? Because there's those moments where people end up giving up in a program
Hmm.
where they get on the scale and they measure themselves and they're dissatisfied with the result and they throw in the towel. Do you ever come up against those moments?
Well, there were times where, when you work night shifts, like I work night shifts, that really screws up your metabolism. So if you would weigh yourself after, say, doing 6 or 7 night shifts, you wouldn't be down any weight. And then about 3, 4 days later, you would have 5 pounds gone, type of thing. But overall, no, because the scale is just one aspect. I didn't even own a scale for the first 2.5 years of my weight loss, because people get so concentrated on a scale that if they do have a bad day or so, they would get too discouraged and they would go back to their old ways.
Mm-hmm.
So a scale, in my opinion, in the beginning is the worst thing that you can have. What I would do, I would go down to the hospital and weigh, or I would sneak up onto one of the floors and use a scale in the hallway. I'm I'm sure the doctor used to wonder what I was doing there every couple of weeks, but I just show up and just go weigh myself and take off. But I didn't want to have that scale in the house. So then, if you did have a day or whatever, or maybe you never got out for a walk or something, you were feeling a little bloated, you know, you didn't have the scale there to discourage you. So I would weigh once every 2 or 3 weeks, and that was it.
Smart. And did you ever come up against, though, like a number you weren't happy with, and then have to wrestle with that little voice in your head that said, what's the point? What's the use? Or did you ever have any of those moments?
I can honestly say no, because when I finally, the only thing I measured myself by, like I didn't own a scale, I would go by my belt. So I would go for walks, and I would when I could wear jeans again, I started wearing jeans, and I had my belt. And as long as that notch, as long as I didn't have to go out a notch, I knew I was okay. And I would keep going. And then when I would have to, I would get a knife and create another hole in my belt. And that's when sometimes when I would go and weigh. I still have that belt to this day. But those memories of being like 567 pounds were so seared in my head that even if I stayed the same at the scale, I wasn't back to that old weight.
Yeah.
And I was still had the ability to do things, to walk, and I kept eating right and everything. And you're not going to gain weight by eating apples and bananas. You're not going to gain weight by, eating healthy. Like to this day, I don't touch junk food.
Nice.
It's been now to be almost 3 years since I've had any junk food. I don't have cake on my birthday. I don't have candy. I don't have chocolate. I don't have chips. I don't have ice cream. I don't have anything.
That's really interesting. I'd like to expand upon that.
Yes.
You said you don't have cake on your birthday, and I see
No.
some people, they'll eat healthy, but then they'll say, well, I mean, but life is so short. We should have the cake on our birthday, and
Hmm.
we should allow ourselves to have whatever we want at Thanksgiving as long as we eat healthy through the year.
Yes.
Why do you think that that is a trap? Why do you think that is, why do you avoid that behavior and you choose to eat healthy 365 days a year?
Well, I would look back at those people and I would say, okay, would a cocaine addict go and snort a line once a month to celebrate a birthday? Right? Would a alcoholic go every Saturday and say, okay, I'm gonna have a drink today for a treat?
So it's a
Why?
slippery slope.
Well, why go back to the very thing that took away your happiness for so many years? It's like getting punched in the face and then finally having your black eye healed up and then going back to that guy and saying, punch me again. Why? I don't. Why would people do that? We got to stop treating food as an award, as a treat.
Mm-hmm.
There's other treats out there. Buying clothes, going for walks, going for trips, meeting new people. Now, I admit I was at the extreme side of weight gain, but for me, I have to treat it like an addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and I've basically come to the realization that for the rest of my life, I will never have junk food. And right now, I don't crave it. I don't want it. I mean, if me or you were sitting here right now and you were sitting down with a bag of chips and a chocolate bar, it wouldn't bother me one bit. Because I look at that stuff and I get angry at it.
Oh, interesting. Tell us
Yeah.
about your strategy so you get angry at the foods that harm your body.
Well, yeah, because I look at that stuff and it put me in a prison. It almost took away my life. It took away my freedom. It took away my relationships. It took away, a social aspect. It took away any joy. It took away any love. It took away years and years off my life. It took away memories. It took away trips. It took away money. It took away health. It took everything from me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was my own fault. I don't blame anybody. Nobody forced me to eat the way I did. I choose that. But I also choose now to never have it again.
Right.
And now, although, I don't look at, okay, oh, that's poor Tony. He can't have cake. He can't have chips. I might have lost that, but I've gained freedom. I've gained happiness. I've gained friendships. I've gained a social life. I've gained the ability to be free and travel. I've gained so much. I've lost over 330 pounds, but I've gained a whole new life. So I look at this. I'll go into a convenience store and I'll look at all that stuff, and all it does is bring back bad memories to me.
Now, some people would think, I don't want to be deprived. I don't want to feel deprived. Do you feel deprived when you eat apples and bananas and
No,
vegetables?
no.
When you eat healthy food, do you feel deprived, or have you discovered that, eating whole real food, right? Real healthy
Yes,
food tastes amazing. Like, have you discovered a whole new? Were you surprised? Because someone who ate junk food all the time, we
yes,
think junk food's delicious, right? But then when you
yes.
really get into eating vegetables, you go, "Oh my God, I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
how delicious vegetables were until you really get into it." So,
Oh,
have you discovered how delicious healthy food is?
oh, it's amazing. Like if I love those huge big apples. You sit down with a nice crisp cold apple that's not rotten at all in the middle, and you open it up and it's just delicious. It's refreshing. You don't get the sugar. I used to get a sugar high and then you would crash after. I don't get any of that anymore. But the natural food that comes from the earth gives you such a natural feeling.
Mm-hmm.
There's no crashing. There's no bad side effects. It gives you the energy to go and have a beautiful life. Like I tell people when I get talking to friends and stuff, and I've used this example. If you're 18 years old or 16 years old and you have your license, and your father or your mother comes up to you and says, "Okay, here you go. Here's a vehicle. Here's a brand new car for you." But the only drawback is that's the only vehicle you can have for the rest of your life. You would you right? You would take
Oh,
that
you'd baby
vehicle.
that. You would
Oh,
oil changes every 1,000 miles.
yes. The best fuel, you would have that car detailed inside and out. You would avoid all the potholes. You would have the best tires on it. There wouldn't be a scratch on that vehicle.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we should treat our bodies the same way. Life is so short. Life is gone like a warm summer breeze. Before you know it, it's over. Why live it filling ourselves up with junk?
That's very beautifully said. I love it. You touched on that you noticed that when you did like 12 days in a row of night shifts, or 5 or 12 days in a row of night shifts, that you hadn't lost any weight.
Yes.
But then you would get back into your routine for day shifts and you'd lose weight.
Yeah.
Is that because you had sleep deprivation, or what do you think changes us when we do night shifts or when we lose sleep that has us to stop losing weight?
I had a friend of mine, she was a nurse, and she just used to tell me that it was just your metabolism was slow down. Because your body, people are not meant to work nighttime. Your body's meant to be sleeping and everything, and just kind of screws everything up. I'm not sure the exact science of it, but if there's anybody listening to this right now and they're, going through their own weight loss journey, bit of advice I would give you is never weigh yourself after a night shift. It doesn't, because the scale won't show anything, and I wouldn't want them to be discouraged and say, "Oh, I ate great for a week and I haven't lost a pound. Oh, screw it, I'm going to go back eating ice cream." It's just, it's just, because your body does different things, right? That's all. It could be holding on to food longer, different, all kinds of different things. But night shifts, yeah, just screws you right up.
I noticed that for me, because I used to be diabetic, and
Oh,
I
okay.
used food and natural medicine to reverse type 2 diabetes is 100% reversible.
Yes.
And what I noticed is that when I had poor sleep, I had really bad blood sugar, and I would eat more. I'd have stronger hunger the next day. I'd want to eat more food. And if I didn't get enough sleep, there was a direct correlation between how much sleep I got and how many calories I consumed the next day. And
Oh,
so
yes.
on times where I had wonderful sleep, I actually ate less food, I was less hungry, my blood sugar was more balanced. And so I was just wondering if you noticed that when you work night shift, if it screwed with your sleep, so you didn't get enough rest and your body was hungrier, so you ate more food, and maybe you're like didn't get enough exercising because you were tired. Like it's how sleep affects our ability to stay on track with our goals.
Oh, yeah. I'll do like a 12-hour night shift, so I'll usually eat around 10:30, 11, then I'll snack the rest of the night, and I'll have a bit of fruit at 5 in the morning. And then that'd be it then until I wake up at, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. But then I'll go for a long walk, and then I'll come back and make an omelet, and then I'm good to go. But oh yeah, definitely I wake up and I'm hungry. But sleep is a huge thing with health. Your body needs a certain amount of sleep, and I still struggle with that to this day, sleeping. I think I drank too much coffee, but that's Canadian in me. I'm a Tim Hortons addict. So
Right? They don't
oh
have
yeah,
Tim Hortons where I am in
that's the
Washington State, and
that's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
isn't that the saddest thing ever? The closest Tim Hortons is about 3 hours north of me. So
Oh,
yeah, I know
uh,
I have to deal with that here. I think all Canadians are addicted to our Tim Hortons.
oh yeah, yeah. It's the only thing that's keeping Canada from breaking up. I think it's.
So Tony, tell us what, because you've mentioned that you've done this by eating healthy and going on your walks, but what does eating healthy look like to you? There's so many diets out there that are conflicting. What did you discover that works best for you?
Well, I will tell you what I ate before first, and like I would. Like, for example, there will be some evenings I would get off work and I would go and I would get 5 pieces of fried chicken, a couple large things of onion rings, 2 large root beers. I would eat that, and then about 20 minutes later, I would go get a coffee with 3 sugar, 3 cream, 3 or 4 donuts, and I would go for a little drive. And then about 20 minutes, a half hour after that, I would go get a large bag of chips, 3 or 4 ice cream sandwiches, and a couple chocolate bars. This was within a 2-hour span.
Wow.
And this was practically every other day. I wouldn't come home unless I had junk food in the house. I drank a lot of pop. I was drinking 10, 11 cans of diet pop a day. A lot of chips, a lot of chocolate, a lot of ice cream. I love ice cream. You know, it could get minus 30 up here and I'd be sitting down with an ice cream sandwich. But but now, like, I cut out, like, for example, I still drink coffee, but I drink it black. I'll go to Tim Hortons now, for example, here in Canada. Now I either get a black coffee or just half a cream, but no sugar. I stay away from all processed sugar. I eat eggs. I'll have cheese. I'll usually make 3 eggs with cheese and mushroom, make an omelet. I'll have steak. I'll have chicken. I'll have salmon. I'll eat a lot of vegetables, and I eat a lot of fruit. I'll have a couple apples, usually a couple apples and a banana, usually every day. And I don't eat after 6. So between 5 and 6, that's my last meal for the evening. And I walk every day, about 3.5 to 5 kilometers a day. And I do that. That's what I've been doing the whole time. The sugar, cutting out the processed sugar, that was hard in the beginning. I got a lot of headaches and stuff for about a month. But diet pop, that's the worst thing that you can have. I found it gave me cravings for junk food.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I couldn't get enough in me for whatever reason. I got no science basis for. I'm sure having one diet pop or whatever would be okay. But like I said, I was drinking 8, 9, 10, 11 cans of this a day. And it seemed like the more I drank, the more I would crave junk food. The more I would crave, the more I would want diet pop. And it would just go hand in hand. I couldn't get enough of either in me. And now I haven't had pop in almost 3 years. I don't touch any junk food, no treats, what you would call normal treats. I don't have any of that. I stay away from breads and pasta. Yeah, that's, and I don't eat late at night.
I like that you said don't eat after 6. That's actually something I just started doing, and I've already noticed I feel better.
Oh, yes.
I choose to eat healthy.
Yes.
I have for, the last few years, and I've been on my own health journey. And, but I noticed that I'd gotten into this routine of eating basically a second dinner, because we would eat like a supper, early, because we have a young kid in the house. And so we'll get him fed, but, around 5, right? And then get him to bed. And then I'd stay up till, 11 or so. And of course, a few hours later, I'm hungry again. So I'd eat again.
Yes.
But that became this slippery slope of eating out of habit, out of fun, even though it could be like quote unquote healthy food. It's still consuming more calories at night before going to bed. Like what do I need to do consuming 500 calories before bed? All I'm doing is sleeping. I don't need to eat more. And so choosing to not eat after 6, like I even had a piece of fruit in my hand, and we just went to the Asian market, got some really cool stuff there.
They got a lot of cool stuff there.
Oh yeah, right? Well, we got this. We're going to a barbecue this weekend, and our family, my husband's vegan, and I have it's day 23 of me not eating any meat. And and I feel fantastic, which it's a personal journey. I don't believe in any one diet dogma. I don't think everyone should be vegan or everyone should be paleo. It's everyone's journey to figure out what their body needs.
But we should never judge anybody.
Right.
I dated a girl there for a few months, and a wonderful lady, and she was vegetarian. So out of respect for her, when we were together, I would eat vegetarian with her. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't eat, and I loved it. I didn't find I was lacking anything.
Right. And I feel great. I can't believe it. And I'm enjoying it. We're going to a barbecue this weekend at a friend's
Yes.
house, and so we're bringing
Yeah.
a jackfruit with us. We're going to cut it up and barbecue the jackfruit. So it's going to
Oh,
be,
wow.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And
Oh, that sounds delicious.
so yeah, yesterday we were at the Asian market. I picked out this exotic looking fruit. I thought this is great because we had already had dinner. It was going to be, basically dessert. I get into the car. It was 6:20. I said, "Okay, I'm going to have this fruit tomorrow." It's just I'm
Yep.
not eating after 6 no matter what. And I can't believe it. I feel so good. It's opened up the it's sort of like intermittent fasting where you open up your
Kinda, yes.
eating window, right? So if you
Yeah.
stop eating at 6, then you don't eat again till like 9 or 10 the next day. You
Yes.
decrease the amount of calories you consume, but also your body gets more time to rest and
Yes.
to heal. And
And it's a mental thing too.
it is because now I actually want to go to bed sooner. So now I'm
Yes. Yes.
not. It was like, what do I need to do staying up? I know how important sleep is, but I'm actually noticing my body's telling me, around 9 o'clock, hey, it's time to wind down because I'm not. I'm not going to the fridge. I'm not eating anymore tonight.
No.
So it's
No.
like, oh, now it's hey, it's time to go to sleep. What are you doing? And
Yep.
so it kind of goes hand in hand, the not eating after 6 and making sure you get to bed on time. Because if you plan on eating more, you're gonna stay up later, and then when you're
Oh,
sleeping, you're
yes.
still digesting, so that interrupts your
Yeah.
sleep. So I really like that you said that no eating after 6. What I want to know is when the night that you arrived in Edmonton
Yes.
from the fires, from the second
Yes.
evacuation, where you had stolen someone's seat, and
Yes.
the weight of that, the impact of your weight, the weight of that on you
Yes.
emotionally. How did you know what to eat? You'd spent your entire life eating poorly. How did you know to cut out sugar, to eat fruits and vegetables, like to cut out pasta and rice? Like, what informed you?
I had a friend of mine. She lives down in Virginia. She's Canadian, and she's married to a U.S. Army airborne. I think he's in Special Forces, but he runs triathlons and stuff also. I mean, he's in great shape and everything. And she told me, I guess she got some advice off him, and she called me one evening, and she keeps in touch sometimes, especially during the fire and stuff. And she basically said, Tone, she said, eat this and this and this, and don't eat this, this and this. She just gave me a little bit of advice, and that was it. And I just went with that. And then I just started cutting out sugar. It's basically common sense will tell you what's good and what's bad. And then little things that you would pick up, a little bit of advice from friends and stuff over the the months and everything, and then what seemed to work for me, and I just kept going with it, and that was it. And yeah, just no. The big thing, like I said, like no eating late at night. For my trick, what I do, I get up early in the morning. Like today, I was up at my day off, and I was up at 5:30 still. But now tonight, around like you said, around 9 o'clock, I'll be getting tired. So now your tired instincts are taking over your hunger instincts.
Yes.
And then you just right, and then you just go to bed. And then once you're in bed, you're too lazy to go to a fridge because you're too comfortable in bed.
Right, right.
And then I wake up soon as the daylight comes in the morning, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, I can eat again. So I get up and I make a breakfast and I go for a walk and so on. But yeah, that's what she told me some things, and then I had some friends, would give me a little bit of advice here and there. But I just kept doing the same thing because I could feel things getting looser. And then when I came back to Fort McMurray and I realized I had 30 pounds gone, I was like, wow, this is actually working. And now that was it then. It was the end game.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like part of what you did was listen to your body and listen to your own intuition, because you
Yes.
had a lot of advice being thrown at you. Like how
Yes.
did you know at a gut level what was working?
Well, you learn, like even through your own life experiences, I guess. Like I had one person tell me, "Oh, be careful how many carrots you eat." I'm like, "Come on." Yeah, you know, see, that's just, to me, that's the reason why people give up so easily, because they get all of these things thrown at them, all these things that seem so ridiculous, and they're like, I can't do it. Well, just filter out all of that stuff, kind of use your own common sense, and then go with that and feel yourself what works. I could kind of, I guess my instinct, my own gut instinct, I'm very, very stubborn. So, I just went with that. And yeah, like I had the 30 pounds gone. I could feel things working. I was finding the longer I went from processed sugar, the less and less I craved it. And I was just eating completely healthy. So I guess to me, my own mindset was, well, if you're exercising and you're eating healthy and you keep doing that, you're going to lose weight, because how can you not?
Mm-hmm. The hardest thing we've seen with weight loss is maintaining it. That
Yes.
there's something like, it's a pretty ridiculous, it's something like only 0.8% of people who have
Yes.
been significantly obese are able to, in the long run, not gain back the weight. There's a very small chance, and I know you're doing
Had the
it.
same chance of Canada getting the Stanley Cup again, but I had to throw that in there. I'm just a sad specimen here today, but all of my hopes are on Toronto tonight. But I'm just a sad state. But yes, yeah, it's a very small chance. But even a lot of the most major things that have happened in this world, in the beginning, it seemed very impossible that it was ever going to happen. But people kept at it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm not, so if I would tell people is don't get discouraged. I mean, you look at the moon landing. I mean, there was a small chance of that happening in the 60s, and it happened. Things that are happening every day, there's miracles that are happening every day that there's a small chance of happening, but it happens. But if you look at most people that are successful, what they all have in common is they're very, very stubborn. They don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and I see people that have lost weight but have put it back on. And the one thing that they all seem to have in common is that they go back to eating junk food. Just get rid of it. Just convince yourself that you're done with it. Especially with people that were, my size. If you're listening to this and you're 400, 500, 600 pounds, just get in your mindset that no more am I ever going to have junk food. Treat it like an alcoholic would treat booze.
Well, it's
And that,
ruining your life the same way as an alcohol to an alcoholic.
oh, hugely. For me, it was. You don't. This earth didn't start by having junk food in gardens. It was fruit and vegetables and things like that. We don't need it. You can treat yourself other ways. So if you stay away from that, you will keep the weight off. If you just keep doing what you did in the beginning, I guess you can apply that to not only weight loss, but even relationships and everything. If you keep doing what you did in the beginning to meet a person, then it will always be a success. Keep doing what you did in the beginning to lose the weight, and it will always be a success. See, the problem with anything that people fail in, they always go back to the old ways. Just get in your mindset that you're done with that. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can. I was 41 years old. I was 561 pounds. I was living alone. I was eating all kinds of crap and putting it into my body. I had muscle pain. I had foot pain. I would come home from work and I would have blood rolling down from my belly because of the chafing. So I went through all of that, and I still lost the weight without surgery, just naturally and just by eating right. And to this day, I still haven't joined a gym. So, right? So so there's no, and I tell people all of this so they can realize that There's no excuses. If they come to me and say, well, Tony, I can't because my back hurts. Well, my back hurt. Well, Tony, I can't because I'm 400 pounds. Well, I was 567. Well, Tony, I can't because I'm working too long of a days. I work 12-hour shifts. Well, Tony, I can't because I'm getting out of breath. Well, so was I. There's no excuses. But regardless of what choice you make, life is still moving on. Each day passes by. It's up to you how do you want to live it. You know, every day we get up in the morning is a day closer that we'll be done with this earth. Do you want to live the rest of your life trapped in addiction, or do you want to finally be done with it and go out and enjoy the world? It's full of beauty. That's the way I look at it.
You live in some of the harshest climates, I mean, in terms of, because I've given myself the excuse. I mean, here I live in a very moderate climate.
Yes,
Just outside of Seattle, where we get barely 2 inches of snow on most
yes,
winters, and we got rain, and I always am using weather as an excuse not to go out for a walk. We've got beautiful
yes.
hiking. We call it hiking. It's hardly hiking. It's just paths in the woods. You can't really
Oh,
call
yes.
it hiking. So we call it
Yeah.
hiking because it makes us feel like we're we're
Going up
really,
Mount Everest.
yeah, exactly, right. We're really
Yeah.
adventurers, but we basically have these beautiful trails in the woods near our house, and
Yes.
they're so easy to walk, and it's so beautiful, and it's so relaxing. And I use all the excuses in the world. Oh, it's too sunny today. It's too rainy today. It's too cold today. It's too windy today. And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
just so silly. And here you are in, negative 40 degrees with the windshield and the
Oh,
snow
yeah.
in the winter, going for your walks no matter what. And
No
in
matter
the
what, I've
hot
walked in
summer,
everything. Yeah, I've walked in everything from -52 to +35.
that is very hot and very cold.
There, there is no like. It's almost like, and I'm not trying to make things sound simple, but I guess you just got to pick your pain. You
Mm,
know, do you stay trapped in that body that's almost 600 pounds, and that is a full-time pain. Like if you don't do anything about it, you're going to be that way till the day you die. Or do you go out in the -50 or the +30? Do you walk with the back pain and the foot pain and go through the hunger cravings? But as you do that, you're losing the weight, so that pain becomes temporary.
mm-hmm.
You see, so you stay with a full-time permanent pain, or you go out and you do something and you go through a temporary pain to have a life that you dream of.
I love it.
But either way, life is moving by. So you
Right.
got to pick the way that you want to live it.
I want to know what happened in the early 2000s that led up to what the weight gain that happened in 2004. Was there anything going on in your life emotionally between like the year 2000 and 2004 that had you want to um, go to food for so much pleasure during that road trip?
Well, I think even before that, I think about it a lot, and I'm a big proponent of self-responsibility. I don't blame anybody for what happened. Nobody forced me to eat the way I did or to live the way I did. But I believe it was a lot of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was with this wonderful woman there for about 4 years. Um, she was pregnant at the time when we started dating, and the little girl that she had, her daughter, is still in my life to this day. I mean, we stay close. She calls me dad and so on. But when we broke up, I think that had an effect. In fact, it took me a while to move on from that. And then just being away from family, like all my family live on the East Coast and so on. And yeah, I think it was the loneliness kind of triggered that. I mean, like I said, I'm not blaming her. Nobody. I mean, a lot of people go through breakups and stuff, and don't eat the way I did. But and nobody forced me to do it. I mean, we have a wonderful friendship now. She's a wonderful woman. But that might have been a part of it. And like I said, just being away from family and so on, but just a lot of loneliness. So I turned to food for comfort. For See, the one thing about food, unlike other drugs, I guess you could say, it's readily accessible. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go down a back alley to find it. You don't have to go, yeah, you don't have to pull up to some shady looking car or whatever and get a little, paper bag full of chocolate bars in the midnight one night. You can go anywhere and get it. And for that brief moment, it gives you pleasure. And for that brief moment while you're eating it, whether it's a big old box of chicken wings or, 5 gallons of ice cream or whatever it is, you forget everything. But that temporary happiness brings you permanent pain. And so I think a lot of that, it was a lot of loneliness and just being away from everybody and so on. And then, like I said earlier, as you put on more weight and you gain more weight, you become more depressed. So after a while, it's not even anything to do with the loneliness. Now you're just becoming depressed because you're so big, and now that's making you more lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bigger you are, the less you want to go out. The last thing an extremely obese person wants to do is to be around people because you're constantly stared at, and so you just become a hermit.
And then
So,
it just exacerbates the problem. It's that,
oh yeah, yeah.
right?
Food becomes your best friend.
Yeah.
And if something good happens in life, you go get food. If something bad happens in life, you go get food. If you're bored, you go get food. Because you have no social life anymore. That's your social life.
What's that
So,
syndrome where you love your captor, where you end up,
oh
uh,
yes, the Stockholm Syndrome.
yeah, yeah, you have
Yes,
Stockholm Syndrome around food.
yeah, chip drone syndrome, I guess you could say. Ice cream drone syndrome. I don't know. But yeah, I guess you could say that.
It's interesting that you had withdrawal symptoms for a month when you cut out sugar and all the junk food.
Yes.
How did you get through it? How did you make sure you stuck with it? Did you ever have any doubts while you're going through those headaches or, all the withdrawal symptoms? Or did they help you motivate you further? Did you say, "Hey, wow, this is how bad this stuff was for my body. Look, my body's having withdrawal symptoms."
Well, it's just you got to push through it because it's like I said, you got to pick your pain.
Right.
I knew I could not keep going on with that old life. I mean, I didn't know how long I had left. My life was destroyed, basically. You, and if it's almost like something in my head was saying, Tony, if you don't do it now, there are no more chances.
Mm.
So you push through it, because either you push through the withdrawals, you push through that pain, because either way you're going through pain, physical, mental pain, either way. So I guess in a way that was my advantage, because if you're going to go through pain regardless, then you pick the pain that at least got a positive outcome that if you go through it. So you push through that sugar withdrawals, you push through the pain of the physical pain of walking and all that stuff, because at least at the end of that, there's a positive outcome. There's freedom. There's freedom of movement. There's just physical freedom. There's mental freedom. There's everything. You finally have the life that you've always dreamed of. But if you stop then and you just give up everything and you go back to your old ways, well, now you got physical pain of being obese. And all that leads to is death. So you just pick one. And that's what I did. I pushed through it because I knew I couldn't keep living the way I was living.
For those listeners who are currently battling an addiction, whether
Yes.
it's with food, whether it's with drugs or alcohol,
Yes.
what advice do you have that can help them to get to that place mentally where they can pick their life back up, where they can transform themselves like you did on that day in May of 2016 when you were flown into Edmonton and you
Yes.
had the light switch went on in your brain. Can you help us to switch that light switch in us as well?
I would say to that person is that you're worth it. You're worth the love, just to love yourself, to look in that mirror and love yourself. And what I mean by that is that anybody that's listening to this now, if they got a loved one that needed them to get up today and walk 5 kilometers to go give them something and do something for them, they would do it. Then why can't you do that for yourself? You're worth, you're valuable, you're worth the love, you're a wonderful creature, you're a wonderful person, no matter what you're going through, if it's drugs, if it's alcohol, you're meant more for a lot more in this life than to be overcome with addiction all the time. You're, no matter who you are, no matter who's listening to this, you're a beautiful person with beautiful abilities, and you're worth the struggle and you're worth the pain to overcome those addictions. And the strength is in your mind to do it. You just have to tap into it. I'm not trying to sound like cliche or corny or anything, but the ability is there to change your life. If just get up in the morning and start and stay and say, this is the day, and keep going. Because either way, you're going to be, if you're going through addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever, that's painful. That's a horrible life. So if you don't decide to go through the pain of the withdrawal of that, then you're going to go back to the pain of the addiction. So either way, you're going through something, but pick the one that leads to a positive outcome. But you are worth it, and you can do it. And then you will have a life that you can only dream of. But you are worth it. Just start. Just start. That's what I would say. And don't give up.
That's beautiful. Now, and for those who are struggling and want to transform their lives, you have a beautiful book that you
Yes.
wrote. Tell us about your book.
My book is called Through Thick and Thin, How the Wildfire Was a Wake-Up Call to Transform My Life. Next book I put out, I'm going to try to get a longer title. But
yeah, that's a really short title.
Yeah, it's a really, yeah, really, yeah. But I sat down with a friend of mine, Mark Griffin, and we wrote the book together. And I wanted to write a book because I wanted people to read about my day-to-day experiences of what it was like to be obese. Because I want people to read this and say, well, holy cow, Tony went through everything that I'm going through now. Every time I turn the page, there's another experience that he had that I'm going through right now. Because there's nothing worse, no matter what you're dealing with, addictions, bad relationships, financial problems, whatever, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're the only person in the world that's going through it. And if somebody can read my book and realize, well, okay, I'm not the only person that's going through it. There's somebody else that went through everything that I did, and maybe even worse so. And he lost the weight, and there was no gimmick, there was no fad diet, there was no expense. I actually saved money because buying junk food is horrible. It's very expensive. I didn't even join the gym. It's just walking and eating right. And if they can see all of that, then that hopefully will give them hope and encourage them to just start their own journey. So I just wanted them to read the book and realize that there are other people out there that are struggling like they are. And the book is very real. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's definitely very real. And they can definitely get a sense of what I went through day to day. And and hopefully relate to it.
Since you came out with your book, what
Yes.
kind of stories of success, what kind of testimonials have come from your readers?
Oh, I've had people write me and say, they started walking, they started exercising. I have people, write me and saying they were crying when they read it. I mean, I don't like making people cry, but it's, but yeah, they would say that. I've had gentlemen come up and talk to me and say, they're starting their own weight loss and shake my hand and stuff. And thanks for the encouragement. There was one message I had in particular a couple of years ago or a year ago. This was before my book, and they wrote me on Facebook. And it was a gentleman down in the States, and forget his name, but he was dealing with cancer. And he said that gave him encouragement to keep going on. And it's stuff like that. That's what means the most to me, is getting the messages of encouragement, and knowing that people are starting their own weight loss journeys or dealing with their own things in life, and they're getting encouragement and strength from it. And that means a lot to me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I love what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm a big fan of your mission and your story. Your website is busseytony.com. That's busseytony.com. We're going to have your website, the link to your site, and the link to your
Yes.
book in the show notes of today's podcast at learnyourhealth.com, so listeners can definitely check you out. Now, I have to thank you because you work 12-hour shifts at a difficult job, and that
Yes.
on your day off, you chose to spend your precious day off with us. So
Oh,
I feel so honored that you
oh,
could
I'm the
come.
honored one. I feel privileged that you wanted me on your show. I admire you greatly, and I think you're doing a wonderful thing. And if you have thousands of listeners, and if just one person out of all of this, can like really be changed with this, it's a success.
Absolutely.
People
Well,
ask me what I consider a success. Like, if I'm 85 years old and I'm on my deathbed and somebody comes up to me and says, Tony, I changed my life because of what you did, then your life is a success.
mhm.
That's all I want.
Absolutely. You've already accomplished that today. I just know it because you've changed my life. So you have
Oh,
your
thank
success, and
you.
all the other listeners are like, I want to say icing on the cake, but what's a healthy version of that? Like they're the crunch in the apple.
Yes, natural peanut butter on an apple.
There you
There you
go.
go.
I like it. Very cool. And you want to get into public speaking. I think you're a
Yes,
wonderful presenter. So for those who are listeners who are looking for a keynote speaker or
yes.
looking for a speaker for their event, please consider Tony, because I think your audience, just like I know my audience loved hearing from you today. I know that
Yes.
any audience would be happy to learn from you. So I encourage listeners who are looking for a speaker to reach out to Tony.
I got an Instagram account, Tony Bussey123. They can write me on there, or write me on my website, add me on Facebook. I have a speaking engagement actually here in Fort McMurray. Later in June, I got one down in Edmonton next month. I'm speaking to a women's group down there. I just enjoy it. I spoke to actually a bodybuilding group last year in Calgary. I gave out some awards and stuff, so it's fun. I really enjoy it.
That's cool. Awesome. To wrap up today's interview, I'd
Yes.
love for you to complete this interview by sharing, do you have any final thoughts or homework for us, or is there anything that you want to say that was left unsaid?
I would say, if anything, just realize, and I try to get it through people when I talk to them. Life is really, really short. It definitely is. Goes by, and I keep saying this, just like a warm summer breeze. And from a Canadian perspectives, that's that's very, very, very fast. But you don't have to be trapped in any situation that's bad. You have the freedom and you have the power in your mind to change that. I'm proof of that. And now you can't wipe the smile off my face. And I would suggest to anybody that's listening to this episode right now that to sit down with a piece of paper and write down what it is that you really want to change in your life. What is it that's making your life unhappy, that gives you unhappy moments? And then use that and change that. Write down steps to change it, and start. Because it's kind of hard to explain, but everybody has goals, and they'll always say, well, okay, a year from now I want to be here, or 2 years from now I want to be in this stage of my life. Well, the 2 years come and it's here like a blink of an eye, and they get there and it's like, okay, I'm still in the same boat. But when you start that goal, it seems like 2 years is such a long way away. presents a big obstacle. And I guess kind of what I'm trying to say is use almost like time as your advantage, that if you just start every day and start doing your thing, the 2 years will be here before you know it, and you will finally have the life that you want. It's kind of hard for me to explain, but that's
No,
what I would
I get it.
suggest.
I
Yeah,
totally get it. You imagine yourself 2 years from now
yeah,
having achieved your goal,
yeah,
and then use the fact that time flies to
yeah.
your advantage to keep motivating you, to keep you moving towards your goal. Because if you do a little baby step every day for 2 years, boom, 2 years is here and you've
2 years.
achieved it.
2 years is gone like a blink of an eye. But when
Mm-hmm.
we sit down and we say 2 years in the beginning, or 5 years, whatever it is, seems
It's
like such a
daunting,
huge, yeah, it
right?
seems like a huge mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But before you know it, you're on top of that mountain, you're looking down. And then you realize an happiness that I mean, right now I get up in the morning and it feels like a dream come true. Like I can't believe, because I mean, less than 3 years ago, I was in a body that was 567 pounds. I was having blood from skin chafing. My feet were killing me. My back was killing me. My legs, I would get up in the morning and I had to stand by my bed for 20 minutes just to get the circulation back through my legs. I would wake up in the middle of the night choking because my weight was collapsing on me and I couldn't breathe. All of the, and then on top of that, I was completely alone. I was just sad. I was depressed. I didn't know what I felt totally trapped. And just from small steps in the beginning and keeping at it, just repetition. Here I am now. I weigh about 235 pounds. I walk 4 to 5 kilometers a day. I'm out meeting new people. I'm traveling. I'm eating healthy. I don't touch any junk food. Life is just a wonderful trip right now. You know, I sound like somebody from the 70s, but like Dr. Johnny Fever off WKRP. That's but it's true though. Life is just, I mean, it's a natural high. And yeah, coming from Canada where everything's basically legal, that's something to be said. But
Well,
yeah,
we want to get high off of life. We want to get
yes,
so high off of healthy food and
yes,
walking and love and connection and being in love with our body and in love with life. You know, we want to get high
yes.
off of all this stuff that's good for us.
And they can't tax that, so there.
So there. We want to get high off of all the stuff they can't tax. I love it.
Yes, perfect.
Groovy. Tony, it's been so awesome having you on the show.
Oh,
I
it's been
just love
wonderful.
it. Yes.
This has been one of my favorite interviews. I love this, just sitting down and just talking. You've been absolutely wonderful, and I thank you for having me. It's been quite the honor, and it's the highlight of my day and my week.
Oh,
I
thank
appreciate it.
you. Well,
Thank
wonderful. I'm going to make sure that we post in the show notes on learntoyourhealth.com. We're going to have some of your before and after photos.
Oh,
So
yes.
we'll definitely check those out. And we also have a Facebook group, the Learn True Health Facebook group. You're welcome to join it. We'd love to have
Yes,
you join us.
definitely.
And
Definitely
after
will.
this episode airs, we can start a conversation. So all the listeners that have questions for you, that want to tell
Yep.
you how much of an impact your story had on their life, you'll
Oh,
be able
I
to
would
hear
love that.
that in our Facebook group. That would be awesome. So listeners, come to the Facebook group and chat with Tony. Tony, you're welcome there. I can't wait to see you in the Facebook
Definitely.
group. Just
Definitely.
search Learn True Health in Facebook or go to learntruehealth.com/group. That'll redirect
Yes.
you to the Facebook group.
Perfect.
It's been such a pleasure. Tony,
Oh, it's been a lot of fun.
please
Thank you.
stay in touch. We want to
Oh, I will.
continue to hear about your success and the impact that you have on the world. It truly is inspiring to hear your story and the ripple effect that's taking place because you're choosing to dedicate your life to sharing your story with others.
Oh, I hope it does. I hope even just one person can change their life. I'm a happy man. That, and if Canada ever gets the cup again, that's another thing.
God willing.
Yeah, oh yeah, holy cow, that's definitely a miracle right there. But
Thank you, Tony.
you're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.